Welcome to Recipes for Grief, heartfelt storytelling for feely foodies. I'm your host, Andrea Sexton Dumas. Welcome to episode 14. I am over the moon to welcome Veronica Wells-Puoane to the podcast. Her relationship with grief is not woeful. Her grandmother is very present in her everyday life. So I think the recipe for grief is ancestor veneration and ancestor connection. Veronica Wells-Puoane is a woman striving to live as the most authentic version of herself. It's a feat that has become increasingly challenging as she navigates motherhood, reimagining her career, and making time to take care of herself. Veronica has devoted her life and career to telling the stories of Black women. She is the author of Bettah Days, a memoir about her late grandmother, and You'll Be All Right, a question and answer journal for Black women. These days, as she works on healing, getting in touch with her inner child, and liberation, she is focusing on narratives about girlhood and sexuality. And I also just have to say, Veronica, this is just a full circle moment for me. I got on my sweatshirt today. Oh. I'm just so excited. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. When we had first discussed ancestor veneration as a recipe for grief, you did have to give me a heads up that your grief is not what we always traditionally think about when we talk about grief, and your relationship with your grandmother who passed. It's not the woo-woo sad kind of grief. Mm-mm. Yeah. So can you first just start us off with telling us about your grandmother, Leanora, your first mother?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I just kind of think of her, when I was writing Bettah Days, I was like, my grandmother was kind of enchanting. That's how I think about her, but not enchanting in an inaccessible way, a very grounded, down to earth, very real person. Mm-hmm. But there is also I think there's something special about somebody who walks in their authenticity in the way that she did. And I think people were drawn to her. And so that's why I call her enchanting. And she was definitely that for me. Just someone who was, hilarious, very, very funny, very funny, real, honest. I don't know. She just was a huge example to me. She wasn't very preachy, but she just lived her life in a way that you wanted to emulate what she was doing, because it seemed like she had something figured out. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really loved about her.
Yeah, it definitely felt like she had something figured out. Mm-hmm. Reading your book, Bettah Days, which is about her story, but then it really goes into all the different threads, her mother, her sisters, her niece, and then of course all of her kids and her grandchildren as well. It's such a beautiful book. It actually reminds me of a television series.
Oh, thank you so
much. I really want to know what's going on with everyone now. I was very invested. Mm-hmm. And she was very enchanting and super matter of fact about things, but then also, had a little bit of I'm thinking about someone when they speak and there's a little twinkle in their eye. It's she's gonna give it to you straight, but then there's also a little bit of magic in between.
Yes, that was her. And it's so funny you say that, because she would do this thing, she would talk and she would almost kind of smack her lips, something she was saying something delicious all the time. It was she really, it was a twinkle. There was a vibrancy to her that people were just drawn to. And I think she had that up until the end. I didn't meet her until she was in her 60s, 70s. And she had that still at the very end. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so let's talk about this magic of hers. I'm actually wondering, because I know she died on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. And so I'm actually just wondering, we're recording in early January. How are the holidays for you and your family with that such a marked Christmas Eve? Mm-hmm. And also I want to say her mother also died right around Christmas time. So it's a thick time of year for your family.
Yeah. I think it was particularly, I think Christmas time was particularly painful for my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom says sometimes that Christmas is a little hard for her. I don't know if I should say the second part, but my sister and I'd be like, girl. And I think we say that because I don't know, this is probably not the right thing to say, but I don't know if she feels like that's what she's supposed to say.
Mm,
But I still see my mom get a lot of joy out of Christmas. And so I don't know that it's necessarily hard for her. I don't know. My mom is not a festive type of person anyway.
okay.
um, yeah, and I say that because my mom and I have talked obviously about my grandmother's passing, and we all agree that it doesn't feel like she's gone. It just feels like she's here in another way.
That's right.
And she's communicated with us since she's been gone. So it
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, it doesn't feel like we don't even visit her gravesite
Mm-hmm.
because it just doesn't feel like she's there. Like
Right.
I go there and I'm just kind of like, I mean, I know we put her in there, but it just doesn't feel like, I mean, I feel like my grandmother's with me all the time. Like
Yep.
I feel like I could literally say like, girl, can you please come? I had to tell you about this. And I feel like she will be there.
Right
Like I don't
there.
have to go to a certain place to see her. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I hear my mom say she's having a hard time, I'm like, girl, but you just said which one is I don't know. I don't know. But that's the thing. That's her mother, and that's
Right.
different than, my grandmother. So
Yeah.
um, and I still have my parents, so I can't imagine like what that is. So I
Right.
don't know. When I talk about grief, Andrea, I just don't want to be insensitive to other people
Sure.
because I conceptualize it so differently. I have to be careful not to like,
Yeah.
try. I don't want to do anything to shame anybody for how they may feel about certain
Mm-hmm.
things. But with my
Mm-hmm.
mom, I know her well enough. With my mom, I know her
That's
well
right.
enough to know that sometimes it's a little double speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting because your grandmother, it seems like she knew she was gonna die.
Yeah.
Like it was almost orchestrated, actually. Like, there was a baby she was waiting to be born, and the baby was born, but she hadn't seen the baby yet. So she's like, well, let me just see the baby. Like, and you also knew she was gonna die, even though maybe you didn't know it
Oh,
intellectually.
girl.
Come on.
That's very weird. That's very real and very weird. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were, y'all are sitting together watching Fresh Prince, her favorite show, right? And you just had some things on your heart that you needed to say to her.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yes.
I did say that. Yeah.
Yes, right. So y'all are sitting together, and there was a couple things that happened, but one of them was, and I forget how she brought it up, but she said something like, she was quoting the Mahalia Jackson song, "If I could
Mm-hmm.
hear my mother pray again."
Mm-hmm.
And you knew the song she was referring to before she
Mm-hmm.
even said it because you had
Mm-hmm.
heard her hum it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And then there was another thing that happened where it was just like you were just like, yeah, I just felt the need to say this. And she was like, oh my gosh. So
I
it was
totally.
it was a really, I mean, talk about a magical death.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's so easy for me to deal with it because it's like, okay, if you are preparing to go, she was always talking about how tired she was. She had stopped
Yeah.
taking her medication. She was like over it,
Yep.
you know? And when you're preparing to go, and my grandmother, I mean, from I can't remember how long, she was always like, I just want to die in my sleep. I just want to die in my sleep. I just
Mm,
want to die in my sleep. And for her to go that in that exact way, I'm like, it was a magical death.
yeah.
But
She
that's who that
really
lady
planned it.
was. That's who that lady is. She's a very
Yes.
magical person.
Right, right. And I also want to say that, kind of referring back to when you said like you don't want to be insensitive to people, like when my dad first died, because my family, they believed in like ghosts and all these other
Hmm.
things, I was
Hmm.
terrified. I was also very young. So for
Hmm.
years, I'd be like, do not show up. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you. I don't want
Hmm.
to talk to you. I was also mad at him.
Yeah.
There's that piece.
Mm.
But I have to say, like, my spiritual journey really started 15 years ago, where I started like reading things and dedicating myself. And my grief has transformed. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I don't get sad and miss them. I do. And in
Right.
fact, I have to say, like reading about your grandmother at the end of your book, I was sobbing,
Oh.
sobbing. It was just, I miss her. I miss her so
Mm,
much. And thinking
mhm,
about her last days, I was away at college. And so, she died
mhm,
at 99 years old. And, I
mhm.
was just thinking about her so much. But it's like most of the time, it is very conversational. It is kind of like, Mimi, I need some help with this.
Yes.
So it does, I think, when you allow that veil to be thin, it brings forth the magic.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to say that. And she also had, I just want to say that I feel like this is very common for Black families. She had her whole funeral planned, like
Oh my
down to the
God.
Brazilian.
Down to the T. And this is why people call me a little like morbid sometimes because it was clear that she wanted to be presented in a certain way and she wanted to be seen. Like, this is my last
Hurrah.
outfit. This is
That's
my
right.
last, like, this is the last thing people are going to see me and it has to be fly. And
Yes.
honestly, my dad took pictures of her in the casket. I don't know where they are, but I need to like look at them again because the outfit was so cute.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was working at Madame Noir and when Aretha Franklin died, and she had her heels on and she had her legs crossed outside of the casket, right? And so I put it as a feature image, and they were like, "It's a little morbid to show a dead body," and I was like, "Is it?"
Right. And it's not, for the record, it's not my grandmother, because several of her siblings lived in like Texas and in Southern California. So when they would die and she couldn't travel to the funeral, she would ask people to take pictures, get it developed, because it was in the 90s. And then they would mail her pictures of her
Yes,
siblings in the casket because you want
yes.
to see them,
Want to see them.
yes, on their last
Hmm.
showstopper.
Yes, my grandmother had like these slipper. First of all, she didn't even reveal the outfit.
Oh
Okay,
my gosh. So it was a
it
secret to
was
all of
it was
y'all.
it was a secret. It was a reveal.
It was a reveal.
It was like a sheath dress, cream, and then she had like a cape over it that was cream and gold, and
Oh.
she had slippers. Like, planned down, planned down. We didn't have to do anything, and that's what she was too. Like, also a very considerate person. Like, she didn't want to
Yeah.
burden anybody with her passing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I haven't gotten on my high horse about this yet, but I will at some point because I'm like, we all need to have our paperwork in order. Like, get your passwords to your people,
Hmm.
let people know your intentions and what you
Hmm.
want. If
Hmm.
you want something big and grand like that, put a little money aside for it,
Yes.
because I think it really does help a family when you're in that shock state. And then you have to like
Oh,
make all
God.
these decisions and pay all this
Yes.
money. And so
Yes.
it's like if you plan it in advance, and my grandmother was also, she was famous for that. She would,
Hmm.
like, certain cousins, she didn't do this for everyone, but certain cousins who were a little more like live life on the edge, she
Hmm.
actually bought them funeral packages. She said, I'm not dealing with this when you go. I'm gonna do it now. So
Right.
yeah, I really appreciate that. And your grandmother also, like, there was something about, she was very, the way that you described her was like she was very honest with herself, even
Hmm.
sometimes when it was like she would be like knowingly dishonest to herself.
Mm.
Like, she could, like, I know I'm fooling myself. I know I'm doing this to myself.
Mhm.
But one thing that really stood out to me was that she made peace
Yeah.
with her ex-husband, your
Yeah.
grandfather, before
Yeah.
she died.
And I feel like that was the final piece.
Yes.
That was it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the book is she went through a lot. She went through
Yeah.
like a lot. And
Yeah.
it was a very contentious relationship.
Hmm.
She did, spoiler alert to the listeners, she did end up divorcing him, but still,
Hmm.
even after divorce, she was still focused on this. He took up so much of her energy.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And she cleaned house.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. You
Yeah, that's
know, it's
just,
crazy. I walked past them having that conversation. Hmm.
oh my
I didn't see,
gosh.
like, I didn't, they were downstairs talking. And then as my grandfather was leaving, she was sitting on the stairs and he was like getting ready to walk out the door. And I was like, first of all, the energy between them was always a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was always a mess. Even if it wasn't like loud and blaring in your face, it was just like, oh, she cannot stand him.
Mm-hmm.
She cannot stand him. That was apparent to me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even the fact that she like went out of her way to like change her name back, like that,
Mm-hmm.
like she couldn't
Mm-hmm.
stand it.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
yeah, it really did take up a lot of her mental space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she really needed to do that. And it was very important that she handled that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the final thing. I think she could, you can't, I think about like death, like an ascension, like a flying. You can't fly when you're weighted down with some
That's
bull,
right.
So.
That's right. And it also seemed like she was a very religious person, not
Mm,
like knock you over the head with it, but God was very important to her. That was
very.
apparent.
Hmm.
And so I think also it's like God doesn't want that for you either. Like that's not why you're here,
That's right.
So she just kind of let it all go so she could go
Hmm.
home.
I remember one time, this just came to me about my grandparents, the two of them. I remember one time she was talking to me about like my grandfather, and this is the thing, she would never talk about him unprompted, right? I would always have to like pry things out of her, asking questions. But once the door was open, like I could just go and just ask or whatever. And so I was like trying to be, it was a toxic positivity moment on my part. And I was like, well, if you never met Big Daddy, you wouldn't have me, your granddaughter. She was like, girl,
Could have done without y'all.
it was worth it. Okay. It was a lot.
That's funny. That's funny because the politically correct answer would be like, "You right, baby," and she's like, "No, I don't know if it was worth it."
You said you wasn't there.
Look, that's right. But
Hmm.
but she brought you there. So this book that you wrote, and you wrote it for your family, which
Hmm.
it really, I just have to say, like, my grandmother was so secretive.
Hmm.
I also had an abusive grandfather, and
Hmm.
you know, it's like, what's that saying? It's tell the truth and shame the devil. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, Miss Ma'am, you're not telling the truth, okay? But your
Hmm.
grandmother told you the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
And your aunts and uncles and probably your mother as well, like they told you the truth so that you could construct this for your family.
Hmm.
I just find it refreshing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was telling my friend about it this morning. I'm like, I'm gonna have to give you this book. You have to read it. It is. It's
Thank
really like a TV show. I want to come
you.
back to some of the signs and synchronicities and magic right after her death, and even
Hmm.
before, because were you the child with asthma?
Yep, that was me.
Okay. So there's this story earlier in the book when was it her firstborn child had
Yes. Oh, yes. I didn't even put that together.
right?
Andrea, you gagging me with my own book, okay? Like,
I
she didn't
love
write
it.
that shit. That's crazy, but for real.
Right? So your uncle was a sick child, like
Hmm.
an infant, like really a
Hmm.
newborn, it sounded
Hmm.
like. And she took her to the local medicine person
Hmm.
who gave the recipe or the prescription for marijuana tea
Yeah.
because it has a different property when it's drank and not smoked.
Hmm.
And then, the family was very apprehensive, like, we should not be doing this.
Hmm.
But they listened and he was cured.
Hmm.
And then many, many years later, you had asthma as a baby. Tell us about that.
Hmm. So this was something, this is obviously, I don't remember any of this. This is just stuff people have passed down. So my grandmother told me, she was like, oh, I knew you were going to be a girl because I saw a baby in pink, like standing in the crib.
Mm,
She was like, so I was so excited. I knew you were going to be a girl. And she was like, and I knew you were going to have asthma. I knew you were going to be sick. And her mother, so
mm-hmm,
my great grandmother came to my grandmother in a dream and was like, okay, when this baby's born, just rub her chest with Vicks. Which seems like, very simple, but even my dad was like, you're not supposed to use Vicks on babies.
right. It's very
I'm like,
strong.
I don't know if black people know that.
I don't think so.
You're not supposed to necessarily use Vicks on babies.
Mm-mm,
But my great grandmother told her to do that. And so she said she had to follow instructions. And my dad
mm-hmm,
was against it. And I think she like snuck and did it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. In the book, you said she would just add lotion on top to like cover the scent.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it took a few years, but I mean, would you use the word cured? Like, how are your
Yeah,
lungs today?
by the time I was like in second grade, I was done with my asthma
Wow.
treatments. Hmm.
Mm. That
Mm-hmm.
is really something.
Yeah.
And so then, like, there was a couple things that happened to you directly after her death.
Mm-hmm.
The strawberry candy
Mm-hmm.
that you found. So that was something that she always kept.
Yeah.
And right after she passed, you found one in your pocket.
Yes.
But
Literally
then,
at the hospital.
like at the hospital.
At the hospital, right in the room where the grief room where they told us that she had passed. I reached in my pocket and there was the candy. And I
Mm.
ate it right there. And it just was kind of like like a comforting thing for me. And Andre, let me tell you something else. When my baby was born, he also had breathing issues, which is this
Mm.
is crazy right now. And because he was like he had swallowed a lot of the meconium,
Mm.
and he wasn't he was on an intubator when he first came out and was breathing. It was getting better, but he was in the NICU for like 12 days.
Mm.
And it was driving me crazy because I was like, we're traveling back and forth to see this baby every day. And I finally broke down, I think like the 10th, 11th day. And I was like, this is unnatural. I'm like,
Mm.
I'm not supposed to be away from my child. Like, I have to leave him here every day.
Mm.
And the nurses were like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And I remember that day I left the hospital and I heard God say, like, it's done. It's finished. Like this is the last time that you'll have to leave him. But like, so you hear God speak to you. Sometimes you be like, did I hear that or did I just is that what I want?
Right.
You know? And literally I went into a bodega and I saw strawberry candies
Oh,
on the like on this like a little thing by the registry.
wow.
And so it was my grandmother being like, no, it really is finished. It's really done.
Mm.
And I don't know what's going on with these respiratory issues.
Right, right. Well,
It's really
that's
a thing with the firstborn.
it really is a thing. Emotional issues manifest in the body,
Mm-hmm.
and the lungs represent grief.
Mm.
So I'm just wondering if there's something, it's almost like when a baby is born in your family, maybe carrying the grief, there's somebody like taking it away and letting y'all have a more joyful life than maybe what was, what previous generations had or something. I don't know.
Whew, that's funny. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know who, but I know I kept getting a lot of messages from my grandfather when I was pregnant
Mm,
with my son, who I
okay.
did not expect to show up.
Right.
But my grandfather was like, "This is a boy, so this is all me."
Ah! Oh boy. Oh boy.
And that's the vibe that I kept getting. Like, this is a
Wow.
boy, so and I'm not gonna be around to like be with him, but I'm gonna be around to be with him.
Hmm. That's really
I feel like I
interesting.
had more sadness and missing with my grandfather than with my grandmother. Just
Mm,
because my grandfather was like not ready to go
right.
at
Yeah.
99, very scared of death, not ready to
Mm, mm-hmm.
go. Hmm.
Mm. Does he ever come to you in dreams?
Yes, rarely, but he doesn't speak to me. I
Okay.
just see him like doing things. I'll see him dancing. I'll just see, or I'll speak to him. And he's always happy. Always happy
Okay.
to see me. And I'm like, hey, Big Daddy, like, what's up? Or yeah, and I know he's happy, but I see him like, they say cardinals represent a male figure.
Okay. Okay. I
That's
hadn't
how I
heard that.
see him all. And
Mm.
what's so crazy when we buried him? Well, no, I'm sorry. This is not that we went to go see him at the what was called. We went to go view the body after they were finished it.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather loved red. Like he had a red pickup truck. He like red was his color. I don't know if it was his favorite color, but I associate him with red.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a red tie. Like he had chosen to wear like a red tie. And Andrea, we're looking at my grandfather's body. I thought they did a pretty good job. And a red cardinal starts flying into the window
No.
at the funeral place, like, and not once, like flying
Oh
into
my
the window.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
And I'm standing there with my cousins. I'm like, are y'all seeing this? And I'm like, and the bird matches the man's tie.
Right. He
Like,
said, I'm here. I'm here.
I'm I'm here. Because
Yes.
a couple of my aunt, one of my aunts was like really freaking out. And um I was just kind of like, damn, like, it was just really sad because like when you're in that freaking out, very sad, very like she didn't think he looked like himself. When you're in
Right.
that state, you're not seeing any messages.
No, you're
And I'm
not.
like, he's trying to talk to you. He's trying to talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
he's really right here. The bird
Mm,
was flying into the window
that's crazy.
repeatedly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, and it's not just you who gets these signs and has these dreams, because there was one cousin right after she passed and they weren't able to come to the funeral. And she came in the dream to show him or her, I can't remember now, to show them the outfit with her cape.
Yeah.
Look how fly I look.
Right. You could have been to the funeral, but this is what I wanted you to see. All you needed to really be there for was the outfit.
That's right. I didn't need you to be there, but you do need to see this
Right.
outfit.
Yes.
Love that. And then another cousin had, would they dream of a phone that had a
Yes.
cord that reached into
Yes.
heaven?
And he
I
was so
mean,
young. He was so young. He was still like in elementary school.
oh
So
my
that's a
God.
very like age appropriate
That's
dream.
right.
Like literally, like you'll still be able to reach me, you
That's
know? And
right.
I think about that, like she really came and broke it down to everybody
Mm-hmm.
in ways that they could appreciate. Like these were
Mm-hmm.
personalized messages. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right, right. Yeah, exactly. They were personalized. I feel like sometimes people say, like in the woo-woo world, like once you've crossed over, you kind of have to like learn the skills.
Hmm.
Like it's not necessarily easy to communicate with humans. I
Hmm.
mean, who knows? Maybe one day we'll find out. But
Right.
it's like, well, for your grandmother, it was very easy. I
Very.
don't know about the rest of us, but Miss Connie, I'm sorry, excuse me, Miss Leanora. So
Hmm.
I just want to say this out loud. We've already discussed it, but in the book, you rename everyone, you know, for
Hmm.
privacy and respect.
Hmm.
And so you gave your grandmother the first name of a version of her middle name,
Hmm.
Constantine,
Hmm.
aka Connie.
Hmm.
And so for the listeners, the episode that came out right before this one, if y'all recall, Kristen's grandmother's name is also Connie. So
Hmm.
I think that's just a lovely little synchronicity.
Yes, we love alignment.
Yes, we
We
do.
love
Yes, we
it.
do. I have a
Hmm.
really weird question for you. Did either of your grandparents wear perfume or cologne?
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. So both of
Really?
them did. These are Jamaican people, okay?
Okay. Come on.
You have to be clean.
Yes, I got that. Yes.
You have to be clean. And sometimes I look at my life, I'm like, oh, this girl, my grandmother would be so ashamed, because but I don't know. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she in the next life she knows it's not that important. I don't know. But child,
Right.
I'm looking at my life like, oh, this lady would be ashamed. But um, clean. Like you have to be clean. Like my
Yeah.
grandmother's whites were always white.
Mhm.
If I'm gonna be around a Jamaican person, if a Jamaican person is coming into my home, I'm like, oh my God. It's got to be cleaned down because they
Yes.
have a different standard. And
Mhm.
so not only do you have to be hygienically clean, but you have to smell good, right?
Mm.
I remember one time I told my grandmother, I was like, oh, grandma, you always smell so good. And she was like, if I stunk, would you tell me I stunk?
Mm. It's a compliment.
Always something. So
Oh
anyway,
my gosh.
yes, she always wore perfume. And then she also there's this perfume called couscous perfume,
Oh.
which is a plant in Jamaica, and it's very fragrant. And she used to carry the perfume in this like wooden jar, or like a
Mhm.
wooden, yeah, like a wooden jar. And we still have the wooden jar. We
Oh.
don't open it, but you can still smell the perfume
Uh-huh.
in there. So yeah, yes.
Let me tell you something. So this morning when I woke up, I actually had a disturbing dream last night. I won't call it quite a nightmare, but it was like borderline. So I kind
Mm.
of woke up a little like, oh, like
Yeah.
flustered and a little upset. I swear to you, I hadn't even lifted my head off the pillow. I hadn't reached for my phone. I'm waking up and I get a whiff of like a perfume right above my head. And I was like, what is that? And it's not a scent I recognize. It was very strong, almost like a musty perfume.
Girl, you gotta find couscous and
I'm
tell me
going
that's what
to.
it
I'm
was.
going
It's K
to.
H U S Khus. I think that's how you spell it. Couscous perfume.
Okay. Yeah. And I was like, okay. It's every so often I might have a smell synchronicity, but it's not very common for me at least.
Ooh.
And I was like, who is this? And I was like, I wonder if it's Miss Connie. Of course, I call your grandmother Miss Connie,
Right.
not Miss Leanora. But and I was like, and I was helping a friend yesterday, so I was like, maybe it's his grandmother. I was like, it's somebody's grandmother up in my bedroom this morning, and I appreciated it because I woke up so upset.
Yeah,
It was like, baby, it's fine. Don't
it's
even worry
okay.
about it. Yeah, so it
It's
kind of
okay.
took me out of that panic state.
She said, "You're gonna be talking about me today. It's all right."
That's right. I got you, girl. Gosh,
yeah,
that is too much.
that's so interesting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, one other thing I wanted to talk with you about was your great grandmother's funeral in Jamaica. So she died unexpectedly right around Christmas time. And your grandmother flew back with one of the daughters, which that's not your mother.
My
though,
mother.
Right? Oh, that is your mother. Okay. I was trying to figure it out as I was reading. Something happened at the funeral, and it was such a powerful moment to read about when, so your grandmother's keeping it cool and collected like her mother would have wanted. Don't be hollering and falling all over the place. And it sounds like she was overcome with grief. Like it just took over her body. And she falls on the ground and she's wailing and, I want to go with you. And your mother was like, how old was your mother?
I'm not sure. Probably like a teenager though, not grown.
Wow.
Not still a child.
Yeah. And she said to her, like, get it together. Which is, first of all, like that's wild that you would talk to your own mother like that, but it was needed.
That is so the relationship that they had until the end, and the relationship that we have with our mother right now too. Me and my sister, every time my sister come home, my mom be like, "Oh God, here she comes," because my sister is on my mom's ass about everything.
I mean, but it runs in the family because that's exactly what Leanora was doing to her mother.
Yeah, it really runs in the family. Like,
yeah.
And you know what? Someone said, like, daughters come to teach. And this is why people always say, oh, women love their sons, because the sons really don't require as much growth.
Right.
But the daughters are going to get you together.
That's right. It's true. Yeah.
They're like, I spent the first half of my life watching you, and you told me we're supposed to move and act like this. And right now, you're not doing that. And so I'm here to remind you that we don't do that.
I'm so glad you said that because that reminds me of something I said to my grandmother, who was not like that. She was not going to be told about herself. Like she wasn't having none of that. She was the mother and the matriarch, and that was, and we are her peasants. But when I moved away to college, she was very hard on me and all of this. And I'm like, you raised me. If you think you did a good job, you should be good with me being on my own.
That's right.
Like that's just I think you did a good job, but clearly you don't if you have to call me and still lecture me and I'm an adult.
Yeah.
So and that was, I was kind of sharp-tongued with my grandmother, but that was like more sharp-tongued than I would normally be. Normally it'd be about other things. I wouldn't be talking about her.
Right.
It was like, you raised me.
How did she receive it?
I think she just took it. We were on the phone, so I couldn't see her face. But one of the other things that she said to me was, well, now that you're on your own, we can be friends. So it was, maybe that was what she needed, kind of like your grandmother, to be like, okay, this is the new deal, and I can be okay with this, and let me accept what is. Because I'm an adult. By the time you were 18, you had several kids.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And I had a question. Your grandmother brought back a plant clipping from Jamaica. Do you know what plant that was, and do y'all still have it?
Oh, girl, we have it. And you know who takes care of that? My dad takes care of that plant. But a lot of her kids have it. Cousins have it, and it really has thrived. That little plant that she brought back, and my dad has kept that's been decades.
Right.
But that plant is still here. My dad had to like visit university to get the name of it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But so we do have the name. I have to look it up for you, but yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a plant that's probably native to Jamaica, not
Right,
the US.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right, right.
Okay.
So every
Mm-hmm.
winter it'd be going through like a little season, like, okay, what are we doing here? But
Right.
but yeah, it's thriving. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom's not like a plant person, but my dad takes really good care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, and let's just talk about your dad for a second because it sounds like he also was really taking care of your grandmother as well. His
Yes.
mother-in-law.
They had a beautiful, they had a really beautiful relationship. And
Yeah.
it was really important for me to see as a kid.
Yeah.
They had a really beautiful relationship. Um, they just were friends. They used to joke all the time.
Yeah.
And, I think my grandmother gave him a hard time because obviously, she's not trusting men. So when
For
he
good
came
reason.
around, so
Hello.
when he came around, she was kind of like, trying to test him, trying to feel him out. I don't know if I put this in the book or not, but she told him to shut up one
Oh,
time.
yes.
I put that in the book.
Oh my God. I was surprised he made it. I was like, there's no way she's marrying this man. There's no way. He told her to shut up, child.
And my grandmother loved that.
That's crazy.
From that day on, they were thick as thieves. Like it was really beautiful for me to see their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Very sweet. Like people talk about like nasty in-law stuff. I'm like,
Right.
can't relate.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a really beautiful relationship.
That's so beautiful. And even just the way that your mom and your aunts would bring a gentleman home to meet her, like that's how you knew it was serious. That was so beautiful to read. I feel like that's like a lost connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got any old man up on your arm, but it's like, no, 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 no,
Right,
no, no, no. You
right,
only
right.
you only bring home the one
Yeah.
who's the
You
one.
think- That's
You bring
right.
home the one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, I'm kind of skipping around here, but I'm wondering, do you attribute like your freedom and liberation? I'm sure you do, like now that I'm saying it out loud, but it's like, so you sell many things on your website, No Sugar, No Cream Mag, which will be in the episode page for the listeners. You have your journal, You'll Be All Right, the book, Bettah Days, the sweatshirt, All Black,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Love Your Vagina sweatshirts
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
sweatpants. And then you were saying like, well, my sister's even more liberated than I am.
Way.
But like, but like I don't know, there's something about this like sovereignty of self and like
Mm.
ownership of one's own body that
Yeah.
maybe your grandmother didn't have. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, girl, you listen. You got it.
All right.
You got it. And you know what? She didn't have it. And so to me, I just feel like our job is to just push it further.
Yeah.
Just push it further. Like be the type of free that she couldn't be.
Yeah.
And I know that she definitely would not have understood what we were talking about, or not
Right.
definitely not supported it. Like I remember one time we were kids, and my sister and I were outside laughing, and my sister and I always laugh. Like
Yeah.
my son calls my sister honey, and he'd be like, "Honey and mommy are laughing. Honey and mommy are laughing." Like that's
Oh.
what he thinks about us. He thinks about us laughing. That's what we do. And my grandmother was like, "Oh, I heard you and your sister laughing all the way down the street." We were like, "Yeah, girl, we were outside laughing."
Yeah,
Like,
you spreading joy. Come on. And
right. But in her mind, it's like, young ladies are quiet and they're
yep.
not loud and they don't make all that noise. I'm like, girl, it's a different day.
Hello.
It's a new day.
Hello.
And I'm like, we're
Yes.
not subscribing to those things that kept you suppressed.
That's right.
So, she might not have understood it then. I think now on the other side, I think she gets it for
Yeah.
sure. I think she
Yeah.
gets it on the other side for sure because, I think she was always pushing for that freedom and doing
Mhm.
little things that she could to get it.
Right.
But
Right.
now it's like we're not asking for permission. We're
Mm,
really doing this.
that's right.
Yeah. I think of it as a continuation. I think of it as a continuation. My grandmother did more than her mother,
That's
stood
right.
up for herself more than her mother. I think about her getting a divorce, like that was a revolutionary thing for her to do,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And so we're just here to push it further. Like we're not marrying the wrong men in the first place.
Mm,
And we're definitely not taking any if we recognize that there's foolishness afoot, we're out. Like we're not staying
out.
around waiting for it to get better. We're leaving.
That's
And so,
right.
yeah, I think that's a message that she could definitely support, even if she
Mm-hmm.
would not have done that for herself at the time.
Right. Right. And even though, we're talking a lot about grandmothers and granddaughters, one of your aunts, like when your grandmother was alive, like made a decision, like, I don't want to marry this gentleman, but I do want to have his children. And I was just like blown away by this inner strength to be
Yeah.
like, this is what I want. And to make that difference of, oh no, he's going to be a good father, but he's not going to be a good husband. Like, I'm not going to sign up for that. I'm not going to ask that of him. I don't want that from
Yeah.
him. I see his role in my life, and that's what it is. And I was like, damn, go ahead, girl.
So, I mean, as a kid watching that, I was so like enamored with her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, things have changed a little bit.
Okay, fair enough.
She's older, but I mean, I was so enamored by just the autonomy.
Yes.
Choices, you know what I mean? This is not like an accident or an oops or a, woe is me type of story. This is an intentional choice.
That's right.
To mother in the way that I want to. And I was just blown away by that.
Yes.
Blown away. I'm like, this lady
Truly.
is cool.
Okay.
I don't care what none of y'all say. Like,
oh, cool.
yes, and to honestly to go against so much of what she had seen and experienced in their religious upbringing.
Yeah.
Very commendable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As I said already, like there's this quote, like, you're either changed by nothing or you're changed by everything. And I am definitely one of those people who's changed by everything. It's like, if I read a book, it's going to change me. And that, like, I absolutely feel that about Bettah Days. Like, my grandmother was, when we were raised Catholic. So, we'd be in church and, I'd cross my legs at the knee. And she'd be like, you cross at the ankle. You don't cross your legs at the knee. You don't wear red fingernail polish. That's
oh my God. No.
Right?
Oh my God. A whore.
Literal whore. And I'm like, fourth grade, like, what's a whore? Like, they sound great. And sleeveless. I mean, my grandmother was just so strict about that stuff. And I've had to work through a lot of those things as an adult to be like, when my parents approve, my grandmother approve, and it's like, who gives a fuck? They're not even here. Oh my God. And even if they were, this is my body. This is what feels good to my body. Yes. And being able to like feel what feels good in your body is such a reclamation that was stolen from her. Yes. And every woman that came before her for how many hundreds of years.
That's right.
So yeah. I mean, even I'm going to get these sweatpants one day. The Love Your Vagina. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
but I can remember even just the way you talked about your parents' sex life, or I'm sorry, your grandparents' sex life, to just be like, and then she would open her legs to him. Like, it was just a matter of fact thing you had to do. And I had the sex talk when I was like maybe 16 or 17. It was under 5 minutes. Under 5 minutes. And my grandmother said to me, one day you're going to be with a man and he's going to want to do things. And, you just let him. You're a wife and you let him do your things. And I was like, you don't masturbate? Like, wait, like, rewind all the way. It's like, you mean to tell me? And I mean, it's like weird to think about your grandmother having sex, but I'm like, did my grandmother really never masturbate? Like, for real, girl? Yeah. And there's a part of me, because she was so private, I have a secret prayer that she just had her own thing going on and she was going to talk about it. It's like, please, girl, please do your own thing.
Please. Missing out on life.
Yes. And so just the other thing I really want to say about this book, it really has everything. Like, you're talking about, immigration, right? You're talking about class difference, right? Like, even like Jamaica, and how like even someone you're not wealthy, but you're still going to hire someone to help clean your house. Whereas here, you just assume everybody's rich if you're hiring someone to clean your house, because the houses are grand
That's
and
right.
huge.
Mm-hmm.
Infidelity, of course,
Mm-hmm.
colorism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, thank you for talking about that, because it's like, it's so prevalent, yet no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
When a baby's born. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Also, something, this is where I really want the TV show to happen. I'm just going to plant these seeds. Birth order, and how those childhood experiences really shape who you become. When you were talking about your aunts and your uncles and your mother, that generation, it was poignant.
Mm.
Just growing up and seeing certain things, and then your eldest two uncles,
Mm.
being forced to leave Jamaica. I mean, it was so traumatic for them.
Mm.
Yeah, my heart just ached for those little boys.
Yes.
Just,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so it's not just her story. I feel like you're telling a
Mhm.
story of like multiple generations.
Yes. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
absolutely.
I mean, I do want to speak a little bit about the immigration part. It's specifically, and not to say too much, but about my uncles. My eldest two uncles. I mean, it's just so like hard for me to even conceptualize how she did that.
Yeah.
And to think about like the lasting effects of that I mean, in our family, we're still seeing them today. And to get to America, just, what they tell you when you're not from here, the
Mm-hmm.
propaganda that they spin about America, like the streets are paved with gold. And I mean, people in Jamaica like thought that was like a literal thing, like
Wow.
that the streets were literally paved with gold. And then you get here, you're taken from a woman who does love you, who does nurture you, and you get here, and it's just like you meet this father who you don't really know, who is not giving you the sensitivity and the nurturing that you needed. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And I'm really, I don't think and I don't think immigrant communities, we talk about it, but people talk about it enough in terms of like the psychological damage that has, because people
Mm-hmm.
just like the immigrant way is just keep moving,
Yep.
just keep going, but it's not. And then people even say like, well, why can't you get over this, or why can't
Mm.
you move on? But I'm like, this, that's not that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
Especially when you're that young.
yes.
I'm sure immigrating as an adult has
Right.
its own flavor of grief.
Right. But at least it's your choice.
That's right. That's right. But to be children and so young, and then also like to not fit in, that was, I didn't know about this whole. I mean, one thing you didn't really talk about, which I thought was so interesting, was like the Americans who they encountered. You
Mhm.
never mentioned their race, which I thought was so
Mhm.
poignant, because it's like, you're an American. Is You might be white, you might be black, but ultimately you're an American, and that's the difference between a Jamaican and
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Is you're an American, and that's
Mhm.
different. And so, to have that as a child, to come in and like, you don't even fit in with the kids who look like you,
Who look like you, like,
you
what
know?
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I do know my grandmother carried um guilt, and I don't know, maybe guilt is just a predominant emotion, like
Mm-hmm.
about that and that decision. Because I wrote about this in the book. They gave her like a ring later, and she just didn't,
Right.
the reception was like, I didn't know you guys loved me this much, which was
Right.
so,
I cried. Oh. Oh.
that was so odd to hear.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you like, as a parent, you don't know if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and to have made that decision, and then yeah, she
Mm-hmm.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Do you think, like, after she received the ring, like, do you think that was a balm for her at all, for her
I do
heart?
think that helped a lot, because
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever remember her crying about.
Mm.
I don't think I ever remember her crying except for that time when she got that ring.
Mm.
And I really do think like most of the decisions she made in her life were with the goal of being like a good mother.
Yeah.
And even the decision to stay with my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
which is like,
Mm-hmm.
um it was about being a good mother. And so to
Yeah.
be honored for that, I think it's like it was like one of the only things she could really fully invest herself in. Everything
Mhm.
else, the choice was taken away from her. But I think with her motherhood, that was the thing she could really do.
Yeah.
So to be honored for that I think that that meant everything to her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about your favorite meal that she would cook for you?
Okay. This is so funny because my grandmother is an excellent cook, like curry goat, oxtail, jerk chicken, all that type of stuff. And then later, she was a diabetic, so she kind of like altered her recipes to be like more healthy. And Lady could
Mm-hmm.
cook anything and very, very well. But as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, my favorite thing that she cooked was beans and wieners. And just yeah, like regular hot dogs, all beef, because she's 7 Day Adventist.
Oh, that's
So
right.
like
Mm-hmm.
no pork. So beef hot dogs, vegetarian beans, over rice with coconut milk. So
Mm.
that's a little bit of a difference, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, would she cook the rice in the coconut milk or would she pour coconut milk over the?
Yeah, they Jamaicans when they make rice, they put coconut milk in it, like rice and
Oh,
peas, they put coconut milk in
it's my
there.
favorite. Mm.
Yeah, so she put a little, but this is white rice that she made. It's just regular white rice, but she put coconut milk in it.
Mm-hmm.
Some part in the cooking process. I'm never in the kitchen still today. I don't that's not my thing. So yeah, I'm like, just call me when it's ready.
That's right.
Call me when it's ready.
When was the
So
last time
yeah,
you
that's
had
right.
beans and wieners?
I think I made it for myself maybe in my late 20s or something like that.
Okay, so it's been a little
It's been
bit.
a while. So I'm 36 now. I made it in my late 20s, I guess. But as I told you, Andrea, I made it. I don't even know if I was even offering it to my husband. I don't know. He was my boyfriend at the time.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, this is like poor people food. This is like a struggle meal. That was news to me. I'm like, what? I'm like, but it's whatever. I don't care. I love that. Oh, you're frozen a little bit.
Did you hear the rest of what I was asking?
No, no, I didn't.
Okay, so in my notes, I wrote pointed dreams, and then underneath that, I wrote dog, and I circled dog. Do you have any recollection as to what I was
Yeah, because
thinking
I
when I
think I
wrote
was
that?
telling you that even my dog comes to me in dreams.
No
Yes,
way.
we had a family dog. We had a family dog. We had a family dog from like the time we were like 6 until I think he died when I was like 18, 17, 18.
Okay.
So for a lot, like our entire childhood.
Oh my God.
And he just got very sick and my dad had
Yeah.
to like put him down. And my dog was not the closest to me. Like he was closest to my dad and then my sister and then me and then my mom.
In that
um,
order.
in that order. So for me to have like dreams about him is like unusual because I wasn't like the favorite. But I
Right.
literally I saw him um like jumping and running around and just happy. And he basically, obviously, he wasn't talking because he
Yeah.
wasn't talking in the dream, but he was like basically like, tell the family I'm good, like,
Oh,
because he was so frail at the end.
yeah.
Not so frail, but just not himself. He was also breathing issues.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm.
right. So it was like he wanted me to relay a message, like
Wow.
tell the people I'm good.
Oh my gosh. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
As a dog person, I have to ask, any dogs in your future?
I don't know. I don't know.
You're like,
Because
my hands are full enough.
I really do feel like kids deserve a dog.
Yeah.
We're also in New York, so I'm like the space. I don't want to be cruel to a dog. Like the
Yeah.
space, like we would have to have the space. But I think even when my son was born, I was like, this is crazy because I didn't even know that it was going to be any respiratory issues. But I was like, I told my mom, I was like, bring your dog because they say that like that really helps kids with
That's
like
right.
respiratory issues,
Hmm.
whatever. I'm like, just bring him so he can be around the baby initially.
That's right.
And she did. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think dogs are important. They teach you a
Hmm.
lot. Yeah, they teach you a lot. And so I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It's a lot, but yeah.
We'll be waiting. Well, so, and I said I hope I don't forget the question, and of course I promptly forgot it. The very first question I was going to ask you is how have you been sleeping recently? And with that said, I'm also wondering, have you been having any poignant dreams recently?
Not about my loved ones. I just have been like, I'll be having dreams where I'm like going off on somebody, which is very
Mm.
interesting. Confronting people, like, and not necessarily that I need to confront in real life, but I'm just like, that was the one dream I can't have that I do remember. I was going in, like, I called my sister and I thought it was so real. Like, my sister woke me
Wow.
up and I was like, it took me a minute to like adjust to like what was
Mhm.
happening and that wasn't real. It was so real. Um, yeah, so I think not anything super out of the ordinary or unusual.
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
So how I've been sleeping, girl.
Oh.
So we're here at my parents' house. We've been here since like the 22nd of December. Like you said, it's early January. So, and I'm pregnant. I'm 7 months pregnant, very uncomfortable. So
Mhm.
I'm like having to sleep with like a pillow in between my legs for blood flow. One day I woke up and I think I had slept on my arm or something like that. So
Mm.
the blood is not flowing. My face was swollen. I'm like,
Gosh.
yeah, so we had to be careful. And then I'm sleeping with my baby in the bed and he's kicking me.
Mm.
He's kicking me from the outside. The other baby's kicking me
Right.
from the inside. It's a lot. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I've slept better.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, I've
Fair
slept
enough.
better.
Yeah. And so then that brings us to the last question. I normally ask a question, something like, because we walk in tandem with both grief and love, I normally ask, like, how do you carry it? How do you tend to your grief? But the grief that you experience with your grandmother is not, it's not the woeful type. So my first question, I think, is like, do you even discern any, like, is there a difference to you between your grief and your love with her?
No, I think like people say like grief is the price of love, and I think that like that really resonates with me, even though I don't feel like it's like necessarily a price that I'm paying. It
Right.
just feels like it's the next evolution of love, but it's not
Mm,
the final evolution of love either. Like I do feel like I'll be reunited with the people that are no longer here.
yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. It's just like it's just the next step. Like, at one point, I would kind of believe like, at one point we know. Um, I really believe that my baby knew my grandmother and my grandfather,
Hmm.
and they orchestrated some things to get him here in the manner in which they did. Because when I remember when I got pregnant the first time, I was like, where my grandmother at? Like, why is she not congratulating me? Like,
Right.
what's like what? Like, this is a big deal. Like, I'm about to be a mother. She had nothing to say.
Right.
And and literally, I was like making my bed one day, and a penny like flew out of the bed sheets.
Come
And
on.
it was kind of like I felt it was kind of like her saying, like, here, girl, damn, like I'm busy. And I just got the sense that she was busy. And I'm like, what's she busy doing?
Right.
But I really now I feel like she was busy getting things prepared, getting things
Mm,
in order. Like I had a birth plan that didn't go anything like I wanted it to.
mm,
She was getting things in order. Like I'm making
yeah.
sure things are together.
Mm,
And my son, I don't know, I just feel like he'd be connected.
mm.
And one time I was rocking him to sleep. I don't even know how I got to this point in the story. But anyway, I was rocking him to sleep, and my son says, Big Daddy. And Big Daddy is what we called my grandfather. My son has never met my grandfather because he died like so many years before he was born. And we don't really
Wow.
say Big Daddy because my grandfather's not here anymore. But he said it clear as day, and he said it like 3 times.
Whoa.
And what's so wild is that right before that, my sister talks to our ancestors for real.
Mm-hmm.
And she told my grandfather, she was like, and make sure you visit Zulu because he likes to chat like you do.
No. He said, okay, let me go visit. Wow. Wow. Mm,
So that's what I mean when I say like, yes, grief is a grief and love are connected and intertwined, but it's not. I think people stop at grief, like this. Oh, this is it. Like, no, this is not it. Like,
Yeah.
and not even we have to wait until you cross over to connect with those people again. Like, you can
That's
still
right.
tap in for real, for real, for real.
Mm-hmm.
They're really like just like waiting.
Yes, they are. They are. And it's funny because I've been getting that message so much recently. Like, I will be at the store just a few weeks ago. I was at Trader Joe's.
Mhm.
I was like, I do not want to be this person, but I just felt called to say something to this woman who
Mhm. Mhm.
my cashier. And I was like, when was the last time you prayed the rosary? And she
Mhm.
was like, it's been a very long time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think you should say the rosary. She started telling me about how her grandmother, she would say it with her grandmother. And I'm like, yeah, she wants to connect with you.
Yes.
And I got in my car and I called my sister. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I just did that.
Mhm.
I'm turning into my grandmother over here telling people to pray. Oh,
Right.
good grief.
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
true. It's like they are eager and waiting for us. And I feel like especially in Black culture, it's like there's this continuum of people who are
Mhm.
like, no, they're right there with us. Ancestor
Mhm.
veneration is a part of our heritage. Obviously, we're
Mhm.
connecting with our ancestors. And
Yeah.
then there's the other side who've been brainwashed by Christianity. There, I said it. And it's like, no, that's the devil. It's this
Yes.
and that. And it was weird because my grandmother, she wouldn't go into it, but like
Mhm.
if the door would close with the wind, she'd say, oh, that's your Uncle Peter.
That's
It's
right.
so it was like it was a part of our lives,
That's
but it
right.
just wasn't like she didn't give me direction about it, but it was certainly
Mhm.
there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 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 And I'm like, we have to remember that. Like, it's so
Yes.
important. It's so important that we
Yeah.
remember those things. And this is I don't know, this maybe I shouldn't say this in poor taste. But anyway, um uh yeah, like we have to remember those things. That's where our power comes from. I think we think that it
Yeah.
comes from like money, success, whatever titles, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, no, our power comes from being spiritually connected. And that's what we have to
Absolutely.
remember and to tap into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can delete it, but I want to know the poor taste part.
Girl, please don't put so it's so funny because we were like, I don't know who said this. I don't know if I read this on the internet. This is a discussion that my sister and I were having. We were like, do white people have ancestors? Like, do they talk to their ancestors like that?
You know what?
And my sister
I'm
was like, you can't communicate down.
I love it. Dude, okay. I'm so glad you said that though, because that's one of the other messages I've been getting is like, and I read this in a book years ago, but like white people really need to be like y'all really need to be connecting with your ancestors, like for real, for real. Everyone, but especially y'all. And Malidoma Somé, do you know him, his work? He was from Burkina Faso. Him and his ex-wife, Sobofun Somé, were both like, they came here and they were like, they had a very big like spiritual presence, like in like the 70s and 80s and 90s. And he said his elders in Burkina Faso told him, this is why white people act the way they do, because they're not tending their ancestors.
Yeah.
So it's like y'all really need to get it together. And before white folks started fucking up the rest of the world, they were doing this to each other.
Yeah. Listen.
Okay.
Yes. It's like, it's really a thing. I do know Maladu Moso. Did he write The
Mm-hmm.
Healing Wisdom of Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the book I just got, and I'm still in the middle of
Oh,
reading. So that's the book I got. But
yes.
yes, but yeah, it's so clear. I'm like, y'all are not spiritually connected, and so you're just running around aimlessly, thinking that everything that you can get is material, and it's
Yep.
not.
It's not.
It's not. And
Mm-mm.
you're trying to have this power over other human beings. That's not where your power comes from.
It's not where your power is. Yeah. Yeah. I also want to say, I'm going to have to keep it in now.
It's fine.
I'm like, people need to hear this.
That's fine. I'm like, people listen. People who
That's
really know me will not be
absolutely.
surprised by that. But go ahead.
um, I think it was like Game of Thrones I was watching. Like it was
Mm,
one of those type of shows,
mhm,
like period piece. all white folks.
Yeah.
And there were these women sitting at a table and they were like beating the table and like singing, probably Celtic languages, like, and there was like a rhythm to it. And it just like overcame me. And I was like, white people are missing their rhythm. Like,
Yes.
y'all need to beat the drum. Y'all need
Yes.
to hit the table and create your rhythm back
Yes.
and sing your songs.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just, so I know y'all listening. So
But
y'all
this is what I
welcome.
said. And I said this years ago. I said this years ago. I was on another like talk show thing. And I think people think when we look at racism, we think about the way that affects the people of color. But I'm like, we're not, white people are not considering the ways it affects their humanity and their spirit.
Yes.
Like you think you're doing these things and you're not paying a price for it. You're losing your humanity. You're
Yep.
losing your spiritual connection. That's why you're not able to tap in because you're so focused on things that don't matter ultimately. And that's really what it is. You're not
Absolutely.
connected.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And not only are you losing out, but your children and your grandchildren and
Yes.
like you're destroying things in the future because you're needing to hold on to this faux power.
That's right. That's right. That's what it really is. Since I'm like, white people think they're doing these favors for people of color. No, like this is your soul is at risk.
That's
Like,
right. Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Your souls are on the line.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I asked that. Oh my goodness. This has just been so wonderful.
Yes,
Veronica,
this
thank you
was so
so very
lovely. Andrea, thank you
much.
so much for how you prepared for this. This was
Oh,
so beautiful. The questions were amazing.
absolutely. Well, I mean, you literally gave me the book on it. Literally. And it's funny because I purchased the book a few years ago and it's just been on my shelf. I definitely feel like I'm a book collector.
Yes,
So
me
it's
too.
just, right. It's just like waiting for the right time. And I was so enthralled. And like I said at the end, I was just weeping with love,
Oh,
just like the impact that she made on y'all's family, but then how that reverberates outward in the world. It's
yes.
just really
Oh, thank you
beautiful.
so much.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you so
actually,
much.
we're going to talk about one more thing
Mm-hmm.
because, and we've already had this conversation privately over email,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but I know that your purpose here on earth in this lifetime, at least right now, maybe that'll change, as your motherhood journey continues.
Mm-hmm.
But one of your purposes is to tell the stories of Black women.
Period. Mm-hmm.
And so years ago, I purchased your all Black sweatshirt
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote a little couple lines just telling you, oh, I really love this sweatshirt. I'll put a post on it on Instagram so y'all can see what I'm talking about. And so it's, a cup of coffee, no sugar, no cream.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the sweatshirt has cups of coffee with varying amounts of cream in it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things my grandmother used to tell me about my dad, because he was blind, was that he would put the exact amount of cream in his coffee every day to match his skin tone.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a child, coffee with cream just made me feel more connected to my dad. So when I saw this sweatshirt, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have to have it, and you extended such grace to me in this moment. And you were like, can you tell me more about this? Like, that's a really sweet story.
It was.
So then I wrote a little bit more. And side note, y'all, I haven't written in like, how old am I now? 20 years. At this point, it's been 20 years. So at that point, it was, 15, 16 years. Grad school trauma, academia is bullshit. So I had a hard time at the end of grad school and I just stopped writing completely. I didn't write poetry. I didn't write in my journal. I was like, I don't need any of this. And then you wrote back to me and you were like, would you be willing to write this essay? I would love to publish it on my website. And it was like, wait, like you think my writing is like good enough for that?
Girl.
And then you wrote back and you were like, so I've talked with I think you said like my council of advisors or like my team or something like that. It wasn't team because it inferred that like there are people who you go to when you need guidance. That's the inference that I got. And you were like, I went to them and we've decided to publish it on Father's Day. And I was like, wow, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge part of why I'm here and willing
Yes.
to like use my voice, is
Yes.
because
Mm-hmm.
when my white professor failed me and said like, you're, no, like I
Mm-hmm.
like, so just so y'all know, shortcut, like I failed my final exams in grad school. I had to
Mm-hmm.
stay a whole nother semester.
Mm-hmm.
I was mortified. I was embarrassed in front of all of my colleagues and my classmates and my professors. And then, fast forward 15, 16 years, and another Black woman is like, your voice matters and your story matters.
Listen,
So
listen.
I just want to thank you publicly for, you know, reaching out your hand to me in that way,
Mm-hmm.
putting the
Absolutely.
pen back in it.
Yes. Girl, and that story was so beautiful too. Like it did really well. It did well for the site. And it was just really well written. I mean, it was just well written. It wasn't even a question. Like it was a well written story and it was a fascinating story. And I just, sometimes people just don't know what they're talking about. They just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think Michelle Obama said this, like, she got to Harvard and she's thinking, I'm at Harvard, everybody's going to know everything and people are
Mm.
going to be so intelligent. And she, ran into a lot of people who just were not, and that's
Yep.
putting it kindly.
Yeah, right.
So, I think, like you said, like we talk about power in the material world versus the power, elsewhere. And I
That's
think it's
right.
important that we remember, like, nobody here on the face of this earth has the final say.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just really, really, and I learned, this is a side story. I learned that the people in academia really don't always get it because we had a professor who told a colleague of my, a classmate and a friend of mine, like straight up, like she gave her a B on a paper and she went to her and she was like, well,
Mm.
why wasn't it an A? And she was like, well, Black people have a tradition of oral storytelling, not necessarily written storytelling. Well, like, well, bitch, what they got to do with why I got a B?
I am so
So
confused.
this is what I'm saying, Andrea. Like
Yes,
there are all
ma'am.
these biases
Yep.
and things that come. Like he's not grading your paper in a vacuum. He's just
Right.
not.
Mm-hmm.
So and you don't want to ever say like that's the reason why something happened, but it's also like
Yeah.
everybody doesn't get it, and you can't take
Absolutely.
that. You can't take that personally and let that throw you off
Yep.
your guard.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And I took it personally, and it like destroyed me
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
But this, I also have to say, like, I just so appreciate the time that we're in right now. I look
Mm-hmm.
at the young people and even the older people, the situation with Dr. Gay, Claudine
Yes.
Gay. And
Yes.
it's like, you know
At
what?
that level.
Come on. Come on. And I appreciate like the memes and things that are coming out now of like, if you are the first, you may not want to be there at all. Like if it's 2024 and you're the first Black anything, perhaps it's a place you don't want to be,
That's right.
period.
That's right.
And in that, it's like, again, I grew up in my my grandmother grew up in a different time, so she raised me how she raised my father, so a
Mm-hmm.
different time. And
Mm-hmm.
valuing um the acceptance of
Yeah.
white
Of
people,
white people.
it was a survival tactic for
That's right.
her.
That's right.
But we are no longer in survival
We
mode,
don't need that anymore.
and it's taken me a long time to like strip that off of myself. But it's like, why do I care what this man thinks? And he,
Yes.
he held this power, but like, I wasn't even in the right program for myself anyway.
Listen, listen. You know what my sister
Okay.
says? My sister is crazy. She, like she'll say something. She'll be like, girl, you gonna let a white man ruin your day?
Come on. Come on.
And that's really what it is. It's like we can't, I mean, for a long time people acted like white people were the moral authority, and they're just not. These are
And
some of the
quite
people
literally the opposite.
the opposite, the most heinous. So
Mm.
I'm not going to pretend that I'm trying to follow your standard. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
say me,
No.
cannot in any way. Like, if you don't think it's good enough, okay, maybe I need to get better, or maybe I just need to take it to somebody else. Like,
Right.
because you don't get it.
Yep.
And that's okay if we don't get each other.
That's right. That's right. But don't let that define you.
Yes.
You know,
You can't let it ruin you. You
that's
cannot.
right. That's right. Yeah. And you actually said, I don't know if this was, I don't think it was Essence. I think it was was it 21.99 that you write for? Where
Mhm.
it was when that Ted Bundy movie came out.
Oh, that was for Daily Beast. Yeah, that was
Thank
like a
you. Yeah.
one-off thing.
And you were like, I am not going to watch another film about, and not just a mediocre white man, like a horrible white man harming Black bodies. I'm not watching these movies anymore.
Yes,
And
yes.
that really, again, I'm changed by everything. I was like, you're absolutely right.
And
Why
I had
am I watching
there was a
this?
Black editor who accepted that pitch. I didn't know who I was pitching to at the time.
Wow.
But that was a Black woman who accepted that pitch. So she got it.
Yep.
And
it
she
needed
worked,
to be said.
and it wasn't like it was an automatic thing. We had to work on it for a long time, but she got it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I think to me, I'm like, this is the recurring theme of my life. Like, Black women look out for Black women.
That's right.
We need each other so desperately, for real.
Yes.
It's serious.
Yeah. In this world that will tear you down at every opportunity. Yeah. And that's exactly what I wrote to you. I was like, it will always be your own who will lift you back up when you're down.
That's right. And that's a beautiful thing. We don't have to be ashamed about that.
That's right. That's right. So, thank you on all the different levels, from just joining us here today to starting this path and putting the pen back in my hand.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this podcast. I'm so excited
to
see what else we do next. I mean, listen, even just the questions, the thoughtfulness is there. So and that's what they say, like, to write well, you have to think clearly. So
well, it's funny because I'm here for the grandmothers. Like, I am really here for the grandma. This morning when I was like, I don't know whose grandmother this is, but it's somebody's grandmother in my house. How you doing, ma'am? Like, I am here for the grandmothers. I'm so grateful. And I'm like, I'm not going to be a mother, but I feel like I make a really good grandmother. Like, you don't have to be a mom to be a grandmother, do you?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Thank you so very much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Recipes for Grief. You can find more information about today's guest on the podcast page of your player, as well as their recipe card that's available on my website, AndreaSextonDumas.com. That's AndreaSexton, D as in donut, UMAS.com. If you'd like to share your recipe for grief, leave a 3-minute voicemail at the following number, and your message may be played on a future episode as a listener shout out. That number is 510-426-6041. That's 510-426-6041. Find me on Instagram and TikTok at Recipes for Grief. And now, here's a little advice from my grandmother.
Life isn't easy. You just have to make the best of it.